Hello Confetti Club. Or should I say, hello every pony. Please don't leave. You're probably wondering why I gathered you all here today. I literally wrote a script for this. I won't be reading it word by word. Did you see that fluff? Hello everyone. This is my, I believe, unless my memory's messing with me, this is my first ever video essay. This is definitely not a type of video I've ever done before, so if you are here for this, if you are enjoying the hopefully very long, this is my, I just started filming, but I'm hoping this is juicy and filled with in-depth love. I've written a script. Oh my god. Who am I? Creating documents? In the name of ponies? Yeah, I basically mentioned that I would love to do an in-depth analysis on Pinkie Pie and why I think she is great representation for BPD, as well as autism. So I have a script here, I have a bunch prepared, and sit back, relax. If you enjoy this type of long, in-depth analysis, video, essay, deep dive sort of thing, please give a little like to this video. I would love that so much. And perhaps leave a comment. But let's dive into it. Let me plead my case to you. So the main 6 characters of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic are a really vibrant array of different characters. They have strengths and weaknesses and personalities that really clash and vibe with each other. And of course this lends itself to all of the morals and lessons and hijinks that kind of make the show what it is. Today I want to focus in specifically on Miss Pinkie Pie. She is probably one of the most interesting and complicated and like perplexing characters in the whole show, and I have a lot of really big deep feelings about her. So this is going to be a video of me basically armchair diagnosing a pony, and just for funsies, just for the sake of the game, just because I love this show. It is a major special interest of mine right now. And I see this in Pinkie Pie and I was like, oh, I could talk about this for hours, and I have a YouTube channel, so what am I doing? But just because this is for fun doesn't mean that it's not gonna be really well-intentioned, really well-researched. This is probably the most research I've put into like anything other than like the J fashion snippets, because I really want to always make sure I'm getting my history right there, like, but the sheer mass of this, I'm nervous. I hope I'm not filming for over 2 hours. We'll see. So yeah, don't worry. This is not one of those like, your childhood is gonna be ruined when you find out that this creepy fact that each of the Disney princesses was based off of a mental illness. And it's like, were they? And does that help anyone? If for some reason this is your first video of mine, first of all, welcome. But also you can like exhale to know that this is not going to be me vilifying BPD or making it into like a big spooky like, ooh, she's a secret psychopath. That's the only TikTokified word I like. Psychopath is kind of funny. I am actually diagnosed with BPD myself, so I am one of us. This is going to be an empathetic and well-researched analysis of Miss Pinkamena Diane Pie. While this video is going to focus mostly on BPD, you are going to notice a common sub-theme of autism. She's definitely autistic. This is honestly really hard to ignore when you're watching the show, and it adds a lot of helpful context and extra information that really rounds out her whole deal. It is impossible to analyze Pinkie Pie and her mind and potentially having a personality disorder without also addressing the autism symptoms. So I'm not super comfortable like making a this is what autism is video because I'm not diagnosed with autism. I've never been assessed. It is kind of suspected, and it's like probably. I often just say I'm probably autistic, but I don't know. So that's why this video is focusing mainly on BPD, but I will clock her autistic traits when necessary and pertinent. I have combed through the entire 9 seasons of the show to try and figure out what makes Pinkie Pie tick. The only things I haven't seen are I haven't seen the two final Equestria Girls movies and the My Little Pony the movie. So this is based on the Friendship is Magic show. I combed through all of this to get all sorts of references of episodes that I think kind of support my theory / headcanon. And I also want to make it clear that I'm not saying that she was written specifically to be borderline. That would be crazy. Autism is that's a whole other conversation, which again, I'm just letting you know what I see. I am not the authority on autism. I'm just a pony lover. So all of these different references I've compiled and analyzed through the lens of the 9 diagnostic criteria for BPD and the 3 and then 2 out of 4 criteria from the DSM for autism, as well as some of my own lived experience as a person with BPD and probably autism, but mostly BPD. So without further ado, allow me to present my case as to why Pinkie Pie has BPD and also autism, and she can be read as really wonderful representation for them both. Before we dive headfirst into Pinkie's personality in the show, let's lay out the criteria and what we are actually comparing her to. So like I mentioned, BPD has 9 diagnostic criteria, and you need to show 5 out of the 9 to get diagnosed with it, basically. So the diagnostic crit for BPD are these symptoms: fear of abandonment, or frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment, pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships, identity disturbance or shifting self-image, impulsivity in at least 2 areas that are potentially self-damaging. This includes binge eating. And I'm also gonna keep this video pretty lighthearted, because the next one here is SH, and this is a kids show, so don't worry about that. Number 6 is affective instability, aka mood swings. Number 7, chronic feelings of emptiness. Number 8, inappropriate intense anger. And number 9, paranoia or dissociation. So I've plotted all of these out on a spreadsheet and then put the episodes so I could check out what she portrays in each episode and where. I am Pinkie Pie's doctor. Okay, now the diagnostic criteria for autism. So you need all of these 3, and then there's another 4 where you need 2 of the 4. So the 3 that you need are difficulties in social emotional reciprocity, including trouble with social approach, back and forth conversation, sharing interests with others, and expressing / understanding emotions. Number 2 is difficulties in nonverbal communication used for social interaction, including abnormal eye contact, body language, and difficulty with understanding the use of nonverbal communication, like facial expressions or gestures or communication. I'm smiling because I'm remembering so many, I'm just seeing flashes of Pinkie Pie doing all of these things. Number 3 is deficits in developing and maintaining relationships with other people other than with caregivers, including lack of interest with others, difficulties responding to different social contexts, and difficulties in sharing imaginative play with others. That one I feel like, I don't know anything, but I feel like that applies more to children. Cause have you been to a Ren fair? Have you been to an anime convention? And then the 2 out of 4 are number 1, stereotyped speech, repetitive motor movements, echolalia, which is repeating words or phrases, sometimes from television shows or from other people. Don't look at me. And repetitive use of objects or abnormal phrases. Don't look at me! Number 2, rigid adherence to routines, ritualized patterns of verbal or nonverbal behaviors, and extreme resistance to change, distress at small changes in routine. Number 3 is highly restricted interests with don't look at me. With abnormal intensity or focus, such as a strong attachment to unusual objects or obsessions with certain interests, such as trade schedules. Don't look at me. Number 4 is increased or decreased reactivity to sensory input, like unusual interest in sensory aspects of the environment, such as not reacting to pain, strong dislike to specific sounds, excessive touching or smelling objects, or fascination with spinning objects, aka sensory stuff. So, girl, was she crumpled that whole time? I'm so sorry. So, the groundwork is laid out. What is going on with her? Let's get into it. Oh my god. I literally feel like I'm presenting my college thesis. Okay. Our first introduction to Pinkie Pie is just as perplexing and delightful as her character as a whole. She's the first of the main 6, which is what the main 6 ponies are called. M-A-N-E, like mane, like horsehair. Hee hee. She's the first out of them to meet Twilight, where she promptly gasps, jumps in the air, and then runs away without a word. The entire show goes by, like the entire rest of the episode goes by pretty much, and then Twilight goes home where Pinkie Pie is waiting with a surprise party for her. So everybody yells surprise, and surprise being Pinkie Pie's first line is actually a reference to her inspiration, which really surprised me. I didn't even do that on purpose. Because we know that Pinkie Pie has been around forever. Like, there's vintage Pinkie Pies, so I figured that she was just, you know, a modernized version of her. But the main 6 were actually created based off of the My Little Ponies that Lauren Faust played with as a kid, and Pinkie Pie's personality was based on a G1 pony named Surprise, and she's a white pony with chartreuse hair and purple balloons on her cutie mark, and this made me so emotional when I found out. I don't know why. I let out one single sob. I was listening to a My Little Pony iceberg video and I went, that's so sweet! And then I just continued on about my day. Anyway, I think this is really interesting that her personality was pulled from one pony, but her appearance and her name and everything was pulled from another. And I understand that this was because of licensing. I think Hasbro had lost the licensing to those old vintage ponies at that time. But I don't know. I love some personality shifting around shenanigans, you know me. But yeah, hey, maybe don't surprise someone with a party at their house when you haven't ever spoken to them. Perhaps not a normal way to communicate. Perhaps not understanding social norms. There's not too much to glean BPD wise from this first episode, but it does establish that Pinkie Pie is a really joyful person who feels emotions really intensely and maybe isn't the best at social situations. Twilight literally goes upstairs in her room and like shuts the door and is like, everyone in this town is crazy. Like, girl, oh my god, get out of her living room. Oh, it made me so anxious. Get out of her living room. What are you doing? And this is not the only time Pinkie Pie just invites herself into someone's house. I don't think this is a thing that like autistic people do. I've had some friends follow me to my car and I had to be like, I love you, but I can't drive you home and like you need to ask. But it definitely is a disregard for social rules slash not understanding unwritten rules. She also has a really unique way of walking. She is the only one who bounces and has this really cute little bounce sound effect while every other pony is walking or flying if they're a Pegasus. I really love this detail. I feel like it probably would have been easier and more cost-effective, maybe, to animate them all walking the same every time, but I love that they did that, and depending on the mood she's in, you know, sometimes she'll skip la-di-da-di-da, and sometimes she will walk, you know, sometimes she is a calm queen, but like, I'd say 80% of the time, if you see them in a group, she's like boinky, boinky, boinky. And again, unique repetitive movements. Throughout this video, I'm not always gonna go, and that's a symptom. But, you know, as I present it, you can see the light in which I'm portraying, you know? She also has her beloved party cannon, which is like a comfort object. She takes it with her everywhere, and she definitely has an emotional, like sentimental attachment to. So that's just another thing that supports my theory. I'm pretty sure she's the only one out of the main 6 that has a comfort object like that. I mean, I guess Applejack has her hat, but like that's clothing. Pinkie Pie carries a cannon with her everywhere she goes. These are just a couple of consistent character traits that stay with her the whole show that I think mirror autism really nicely. The next episode I picked out because I went into YouTube and I searched Pinkie Pie Has BPD because I wanted to see what else was out there. You know, I'm doing my research and I should see, like, has anyone else, you know, maybe I'm not the only one. And the first thing that came up was a playlist that was just called Pinkie Pie Being a Borderline. So obviously I checked that. There was also a video that diagnosed each of the main 6 with different things. That was interesting. I'm also a person who is always like, I respect everyone's headcanons and theories, as long as they're not, you know, weird in a bad way. But I will never say that like my theory is more correct or more valid than anyone else's. Like, I don't care about that. You can armchair diagnose Pinkie Pie. I can armchair diagnose Pinkie Pie. She's not a real person. That actually made me sad. Pinkie Pie's not real. But if Pinkie Pie was a real person, this would be very f***ed of me, okay? Oh my god, okay, I wrote in the script, I'm never one to dismiss others' theories just because I have my own. I think it's fun that we can all come to our own conclusions and share why we think that, except when it's about who Applejack is in love with, which is obviously Rainbow Dash. I need to go. I need to get this out of my system. And I need to change who I am. But anyway, the first video on the Pinkie Pie being a borderline playlist was Griffin the Brush Off, which is not one that I had put on my list already. I had a Google Doc fired up already when I wasn't planning on making this video. I just was watching the show and I was just like, I had to keep notes on this. I was like splitting on Rainbow Dash, black and white thinking, dissociation, identity confusion, Pinkie Pie has BPD. And anyway, I hadn't thought of this episode, so when I saw that someone else had put it on their Pinkie Pie has BPD list, I had to check it out. So I did a little analysis. A little snack of episode 5 before we go into the main course of Party of One, which is the episode I'm going to talk about after that. Hee hee. So the episode opens up with an excitable, rambling Pinkie Pie, and at first we only hear her voice and she's off screen, and then it pans over and we see that she's like bouncing up and down, telling the story about Rainbow Dash, with Twilight on the bench reading a book where it's very, very clear by her body language and her short responses and overall lack of enthusiasm. It's really clear that she doesn't want to be distracted right now and that she's like not impressed by Pinkie Pie bothering her while she's reading. This is only episode 4, so these girls don't know each other super well yet, so I can forgive Twilight this time for not being like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read. Can we talk about this some other time? But like, it makes me so sad to see people be mean to Pinkie Pie or roll their eyes at Pinkie Pie. It hurts my little heart. Pinkie Pie bounces off to go talk to Rainbow Dash. Twilight literally sighs of relief, and then Rainbow Dash also runs away and tries to avoid Pinkie. This makes me sad! But again, actually this is episode 5, sorry, not 4. So they don't know each other that well yet. This episode deals a lot with themes of jealousy and like nasty people and bullying, and also not being believed when you're being bullied and you reach out to someone to talk. Pinkie Pie is being blatantly mistreated by Rainbow Dash's visiting friend Glinda, and when she goes to Twilight, her friend, Twilight completely brushes her off, doesn't listen, and like fully victim blames her. It's so hard to watch. Even Spike is encouraging it. Pinkie Pie does have a little bit of an anger outburst here, but I think it's kind of fair given the circumstances, so I wouldn't say that this is her being disorderly. This is her reacting in I was gonna say human way. In a pony way. The only way a pony can react when someone is straight up like gaslighting and victim blaming you is Twilight Sparkle. Damn, she does need to learn about friendship. Yeah, I said I don't count it as explosive anger or mood swings, as I think she's valid to be upset here. I also think it's funny how she angrily squeaky stomps away. It's like, tick, 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 tick.
Are you serious? Ah!
There are some other moments in this episode that I would clock as like frantic efforts to avoid real or perceived abandonment, and also impulsive behaviors. She literally announces, "This calls for extreme measures, Pinkie Pie style." This becomes a pattern you can definitely see throughout the show. She will like come up with an idea to fix the reason why she's in distress, and she will go and do it, and it usually isn't helpful. This whole party is not the healthiest way to go about solving an interpersonal issue. Like, I believe Pinkie when she says she genuinely thought that Gilda could warm up and maybe become their friend from this, but they kinda did like bait her there and then poke her buttons by like pranking her a million times. They kinda like pushed her to react in front of everyone, and it's hard to not think that Pinkie Pie intentionally wanted to out Gilda as mean by like triggering her at the party so she would have an outburst. But Gilda is mean and does deserve to be called out. So like, I'm not on Team Gilda, but I do think that this was kind of a bizarre way to handle it. But Pinkie Pie says she didn't do that, so I'm not victim blaming Pinkie Pie either, okay? I would never. But yeah, a good way to sum up my thoughts on this, I think, is that this roundabout problem solving and indirect communication is a big theme, and that is kind of how a lot of these BPD symptoms show through, is in all different kinds of indirect communication. Why are you inviting her to a party and doing all this stuff when, like, you could probably just, like, talk it out in a way that isn't so public and explosive and, like, embarrassment-y? But this episode isn't all that bad. I think Pinkie Pie handles being mistreated, like, pretty reasonably. She reacts really well considering what's being thrown at her. Like, Gilda's horrible. Doesn't she say, "You're dorking up the sky, stinky pie"? She hit her with the stinky pie. I would never recover. But I just had to look at this episode, seeing that it was on someone's Pinkie Pie is a Borderline playlist. And it's interesting to see a really, really early example of how she handles interpersonal issues. This next episode has a lot more to unpack. One of the most famous Pinkie Pie episodes, Party of One. Party of One is one of the most kind of out of place feeling and a little bit like weirdly dark episodes of My Little Pony. As dark as My Little Pony can get, you know. I'm not saying this is like keeping me up at night, but I probably wouldn't be making this video if it wasn't for Party of One and all of the kind of similar episodes that would follow it throughout the show, so let's get into it. We start the episode off at a normal party at Pinkie's for her pet alligator Gummy. As her friends are leaving the party, fully like walking outside, going home, she calls out her window asking if they're sure they want to go. Twilight politely declines and says we should do this again soon. Pinkie takes this literally, like really, really, really literally, and this is another pattern you will see with her throughout the show. So the very next day, she bounces around town and knocks on each of her friends' doors, inviting them to an after-birthday party that afternoon. And one by one, each of the main 6 politely decline. They go, this afternoon? Like, this afternoon, this afternoon? And they all come up with different excuses as to why they cannot attend. And one by one, Pinkie Pie becomes a little bit more suspicious and disheartened. We, as the viewer as well, can see that these excuses are not honest. Like, we can see Twilight making a bunch of books appear as she says, I need to study. We can see Rarity shove her head in garbage, which is just another funny, random, reoccurring trope. The fancy beauty spa loving pony constantly gets like covered in garbage and slime. Poor diva. So we as the viewer can see that these are not honest reasons, and Pinkie Pie just begins to spiral with rejection after rejection, and she really enters this paranoia loop, really thinking that her friends all hate her parties and they don't even want to be her friend anymore. This absolutely spirals her into just a pit of paranoia, fear of abandonment, and total anger and rage at her so-called friends. She fully splits on them, is fully just running on fear of being abandoned. This is another moment where she suddenly has a plan and does it immediately, and it's kind of like, was that the smartest idea? Or are you just like running with it immediately because you can't bear to be in pain? But yeah, she suddenly has a brain blast and realizes who she can grill for information, which is Spike. So it cuts to her creating this like crime interrogation style thing with the lamp and the chair and the like, where were you on Saturday evening? The way she immediately has this idea and jumps to set up the most intimidating interrogation room imaginable, I'm gonna say that that's impulsive behavior. Spike unfortunately has no idea how to handle this and ends up basically accidentally confirming Pinkie's worst fears. He has no idea what her problem is and he goes, just tell me what you want to hear and I'll say it. And she says, tell me that all my friends hate my parties and they don't want to be my friend anymore. And he goes, all your friends at your parties and they don't want to be your friend anymore. And in that moment, Pinkie Pie, like, her whole soul shatters. For the first time in the show, we see this muted color palette, straightened hair Pinkie Pie. It's like her essence of joy was robbed. It's the saddest thing in the world. She has, like, a mental break at this point, and just her whole personality and also the way she looks shifts. She goes on to straight up have a BPD episode. It is very obvious here that the writers are intentionally portraying like a mental breakdown of some sort. She ends up throwing her own party that afternoon, with the attendees being random objects she found around the house. She sticks party hats on them and uses them to kind of voice her different conflicting schools of thought on the whole situation. She really seems to have a dissociative episode where she externalizes these negative feelings as something completely not her own. It is too painful to hold this with me. I can't be me anymore. I can't hold this anymore. The only way she can think to cope is by externalizing these hateful feelings towards her friends through objects. As Pinkie, she responds to them defensively at first, saying that, you know, they can't be really that bad and they're my friends after all, but she pretty quickly gives into this black and white thinking right before Rainbow Dash knocks on her door and sees everything that's going on. With a lot of pushback, Rainbow Dash literally drags Pinkie Pie to Sweet Apple Acres, where the rest of the girls have set up a little surprise party for her. Oh, isn't that sweet? But at first, Pinkie Pie is so deeply split on them and just not yet in this reality. Like, she's still stuck in the episode she was just having, where she can't even access the part of her that believed in these friends right now. She's just so deeply split on them in this moment that she cannot fathom that this party is positive. She shouts at them really angrily, saying, why would I be excited to attend my own farewell party? Assuming that this is like a goodbye, farewell, we'd never want to see you again party. Anyway, she has a little bit of an outburst here before she sees the cake and she sees the decorations, and it all sets in and she remembers that today is her birthday. It's her birthday! One little thing I really, really treasure about this episode is how at the very end, Twilight goes, it's okay, Pinkie, it could have happened to any of us.
How could I have ever doubted you?
It's okay, Pinkie Pie. It could have happened to any of us.
Don't worry about it.
That makes me want to cry. People with BPD are really just trying to understand the world around us and protect ourselves from negative feelings, because we often feel things really, really intensely, and there's a lot of trauma that leads to why we might react to things in interesting or particular ways. But at this point, we need to talk about Pinkamena. Well, Pinkamena is technically just Pinkie Pie's full name, Pinkamena Diane Pie. I love that her middle name is Diane. I love that more than anything else in the whole world. Pinkie Diane Pie. That's awesome. I want my name to be Jillian Pixie Vesey. That's actually the same vibe. But the name Pinkamena would be used to refer to something very specific within the fandom. It would be the name given to describe this straightened hair, muted color palette, like dark Pinkie Pie. Not only the like depressed Pinkie Pie from the show, but the fan works and the animations and the media and the cosplays that would burst forth from this. Pinkamena became her whole own thing, okay? I'm probably gonna post this whole thing on Twitter if anyone's like, what, can I see what's on your conspiracy board, you freak? I'm proud of this. This took me all day. I'm recording this really late at night because this took me all day, and yesterday I spent like 8 hours script writing. I wanted this to come out this weekend so bad, so I was just like, I'll use every single hour in the day. I don't need to sleep. Around this same time, one of maybe the most infamous fanfictions of all time was posted to the internet. Let me know the contenders that would perhaps battle with that. I remember Anatomy of a Fall. Wasn't that My Chemical Romance? But the infamous fanfic I'm referring to is Cupcakes. If you have been anywhere near the My Little Pony fandom in the last, like, 10 years, I guess it came out in, what, 2011? Oh, more than 10 years. Okay. You've probably heard of Cupcakes. I was actually surprised to learn that Cupcakes came out before Party of One aired, so you'd think that, like, straightened hair, dark, depressed Pinkie Pie might have inspired this fanfic, but it was just a coincidence. They are not related. Party of One couldn't have been inspired by Cupcakes because it came out, like, I think Cupcakes came out 3 months after the first season of MLP started coming out. All of this I gleaned from an Aziz video. Thank you, Aziz. But basically, in the fanfic Cupcakes, I'm not gonna get descriptive with this. It's like shock factor gore party. Basically, Pinkie Pie like lures the other ponies into her basement and like I guess mute this for a sec if you don't want to hear it comically described. She like chops the ponies up and makes them into cupcakes, and then she like makes an outfit out of their cutie marks, and she has like unicorn horns as a necklace. It's kind of sick. She has a chainsaw. And like this version of Pinkie Pie has been drawn and cosplayed, and it was huge. It was huge, and it was infamous for being like really bad and like shock value for the sake of shock value. But anyway, I can't make a video about Pinkie Pie having mental illness without talking about Cupcakes or Pinkamena. It's just not right. But yeah, even I have had fun with this juxtaposition between Pinkie and Pinkamena. I did some silly little art about it. There's just something about having such a bubbly, sugary, joyful character of such a stark foil. Not even necessarily being evil, but even like Pinkie and Maud. I love them together. So wonderful. And Maud is just like flat affect. Just like just a different kind of autism. Autism in the other direction. The next episode I want to focus on is from season 2, episode 18, A Friend Indeed. This episode isn't so heavy on the BPD symptoms, but it has a lot of major moments for Pinkie, and she also shows quite a few autistic traits here that I think are worth pointing out. This episode also contains her most iconic song. Like, this song can only be described as the Pinkie Pie anthem until you get to Pinkie the Party Planner. That's my personal favorite Pinkie Pie song. The song Smile. This is just beautiful. This is just her singing who she is, what she wants to do for the world. This is her musical theater moment. So in this episode, we see Pinkie Pie bouncing cheerfully through town, greeting all of the townspeople. She's clearly just like so beloved in her community, and everyone knows her name, and it's just really sweet and precious. And this is when she breaks into the song Smile. It's just pure sunshine and joy, and really, really shines through how kind and well-meaning Pinkie Pie can be when she feels safe and appreciated. Much like Spinel from Steven Universe, another amazing allegory for BPD that we hold really close to our heart. Many of us just need to be found. We need to just get out of the toxic or unhealthy environment we were in, and we just need safe, healthy people around us. Pinkie Pie and Spinel have a lot of parallels. Their two-sided nature, their over-the-top, super bubbly, super friendly, be my best friend energy when they are in good spirits, and of course they're both pink. A pink two-sided diva. That's my favorite kind of diva. But anyway, back to the song Smile. The song concludes with her coming face to face with possibly the most unsmiley looking fellow you could ever imagine. And it's a donkey. It's a very, very cranky looking donkey. I'm not gonna lie, I don't love this episode because I don't really love cranky doodle donkey dude. But it has Pinkie Pie's anthem. Okay? And it's important for her growth. But I don't know, he just bums me out. And I think he's ugly. I'll say it, I think he's ugly. I don't want to look at him. He's bald. Another reason why I don't love this episode is because not only does Pinkie Pie not pick up on like non-verbal body language type read between the lines communication, but like he straight up is like, go away. leave me alone, stop. And she's like, no. And like, that's not cool. That's like disrespecting boundaries. And this is another episode where she just invites herself into someone's house, and it's this guy's house. And like, he's not even your friend. I guess Twilight wasn't even her friend. You can't make friends by going to people's houses and just being like, hey. Unless you're like 8 and you live in a neighborhood that's cool like that, and you can just be like, do you want to play Beyblades? But this is a man unpacking. This is a grown man unpacking his wagon. Anyway. But yeah, not everyone is gonna like you or want to be your friend. And I think the fact that Pinkie Pie really won't accept this and just pushes through and is like, I won't stop until he's my friend, I don't think that's the best moral to push. She fully exposes him very publicly for wearing a toupee in like the most embarrassing way imaginable.
This donkey is really, really bald!
She invites herself into his home and then clumsily, accidentally catches fire to his precious memory album, which is his last remaining reminder of his star-crossed lover that he's been trying to find. It's so hard to watch. And it's like, oh my god, Pinkie Pie, please just leave him alone. Neither autism nor BPD make you catch people's things on fire. Just making that so clear. Probably didn't need to clarify that. But just why does she do this? I don't like this episode very much, but again, this is kind of important for her character. There's a line here where Cranky goes, "You're extra special, kid." Hey, what does he mean by that?
This was a special friend.
Like me?
No, you're extra special, kid.
Yes, I'm in.
Pinkie goes to Twilight for advice again, and it's very much similar to the scene where she goes to Twilight for advice in Griffin the Brush-Off, but I like Twilight's advice here a lot more. And I also wish that Pinkie took it. The moral ends up being that there's all kinds of different friends, and some friends like to jump and laugh and play, and some friends like to be quiet and have some alone time and be a little bit more distant. And it's like, okay, but you also can't force every single person you come across to be your friend. They're not all gonna be winners. There are a couple other little running gags and elements to Pinkie's character that I think have really interesting implications in regards to my theory slash headcanon slash whatever. And I'm gonna talk about them as they come up, and one of them is coming up here, which is Pinkie Pie's internal, like, mind's eye. How she thinks, what she sees when she closes her eyes. If I did my research correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong about anything here, but I'm fairly certain that Pinkie Pie is the only character where whenever they are describing a situation from their imagination, or we see their mind's eye or whatever, it's often in a different animation style. Here we have a scene where she is thinking and it's all animated in felt. There's a scene in the mystery on the Friendship Express or whatever, where she's describing like a hypothetical situation and it's in film noir. There might be other film noir scenes in the show, but it's often in Pinkie's imagination where things will be animated differently. I like to perceive this as her internal experience being different than other folks, or perhaps something to do with like other dimensions, etc. In the goof off also, there's a cutaway to live action Gummy. The only other time I can really think that they did some funky animation stuff where it wasn't the regular Flash style we're used to was make new friends but keep Discord. He opens up a portal and there's like a puppet or something. And of course Cheese Sandwich also shows his like boneless dancing around, and it's just a video of a rubber chicken. But that's Discord and Cheese Sandwich. And I feel like they're also allowed to kind of go outside the realm of the normal My Little Pony world we're used to. And along that same vein, Pinkie Pie, I'm pretty sure, maybe other than Discord, okay, is the only one who breaks the fourth wall. She's the only one who will turn straight to the camera, again, aside from Discord, and be like, hey. And also she'll do things that are just impossible. This gives such a bizarre, otherworldly, like, layer to Pinkie Pie. Like, what is she capable with? What does she know? Is she like 1 foot in another dimension? What is going on with Miss Pie? But let us march along to the next episode I want to analyze, which is season 3, episode 3, Too Many Pinkie Pies. Once again, this episode opens up with Pinkie Pie being an absolute ball of joy and unintentionally, like unknowingly bothering Twilight. She literally glomps her. She runs up to her and hugs her, and Twilight once again is in the middle of like actual important stuff.
Pinkie, why'd you do that? Because hugs are funerific, especially when you throw one around a friend.
But there's much more interesting stuff to talk about from this episode, okay? Pinkie Pie clones herself multiple times over in an attempt to never miss out on anything ever. It is the FOMO episode. Predictably, this goes horrendously and results in all sorts of hijinks. The clones start cloning themselves, and then they end up just stampeding the town in like an absolute ball, like just a terrorizing mass of Pinkie Pie energy, leaving so much destruction in their wake, like ruining homes, ruining lives probably. And the real Pinkie Pie, who at first of course thought this was a great idea and is now not so sure, she becomes like really depressed and confused, and she struggles with her identity to the point where she's like, I don't know if I'm the real one either. How do I know if I'm the real one? How do I know if I'm even me? So of course, a plot point of this episode is trying to figure out which Pinkie Pie is the real one, because they're all saying that they're the real one. And Spike literally goes right up to Pinkie and is like, are you the real Pinkie Pie? And she goes like, I don't know, could be any one of us. Often with this trope, the original person is determined to prove themselves right to the end. But Pinkie seems really genuinely prone to dissociation, just like we saw in Party of One, and specifically depersonalization. She doubts her reality so much to the point where she doesn't even bother attending this like challenge situation that Twilight has set up to help figure out who the real one is. Rainbow Dash has to burst through the door last second with her, or she straight up would have just missed it. But thank God once she's there, she does, partake in the challenge, which is watching paint dry. The logic is that the real Pinkie Pie would power over the boredom and the discomfort of not having fun by the promise of seeing her friends again, which like is true and fair, and it does work, thank God. But this episode also spawned a lot of theories that like maybe she's not the real Pinkie Pie, or like maybe some of the other clones are still out there, which don't we also see that later on? I took down a quote here. Pinkie goes, I'm me, I'm me, I'm me. Or am I? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm me. I don't know, that just makes me really emotional as a person with a dissociative identity disorder. That's really sweet. That's really sweet, that's really sweet. Okay. While scraping through the series for any pertinent Pinkie points, I came across some episodes that weren't quite worthy of like doing the whole spreadsheet with all of the BPD symptoms. It wasn't quite so focused on Pinkie and like how she handles things and her emotional state, etc. But these episodes did have little bits here and there that I think add a nice little spice, add just a nice little context, little sprinkling to my headcanon theory or whatever. So here's a couple episodes I just want to mention real quick. Season 4, episode 9, Pinkie Apple Pie. In the first scene here, AJ really shows how she has learned to communicate with Pinkie Pie, and it just makes my heart so warm. She asks a rhetorical question and then goes, actually, never mind, you don't have to answer that, knowing that Pinkie Pie would take it literally. And she also says, make sure not to tell too many people that, you're part of the Apple family. They might be jealous. Knowing that Pinkie Pie is very chatty and very personable and very loud. And I know that Applejack is joking there, but I think it's sweet. I think it shows the growth of like friends learning how to communicate with each other and understand each other and, interpret each other's patterns. I just think it's sweet. My next little note is from season 4, episode 12, Pinkie Pride. Surprisingly, there wasn't enough to do like a whole spreadsheet number on this one, but you really can't do a video on Pinkie Pie without talking about Pinkie Pride. This is one of my favorite MLP episodes ever. Pinkie Pie's body language with Rainbow Dash in the opening, again, when they show other characters being like, this is too much, like wincing or squinting, I don't know. It's interesting because they are like clearly communicating that she's like being a bit much and hugging her too tight and like coming on too strong, but then also like I don't know, Rainbow Dash, like, I don't know, communicate. You guys need to put boundaries in place because she's gonna Pinkie Pie all over the place. The other thing I want to mention from this episode is how she is often able to kind of pull herself out of negative thought spaces. Not all the time. Not all the time. And like, who of us is able to do it all the time? Probably no pony. But I really, really love in Pinkie's Lament, the song, how she's able to kind of turn her whole thought process and mood around just by remembering who she is, and external, you know, like objects, photographs on the wall help her spark her memory and remember who she really is. And she sings that like the real Pinkie. I love this song. I love this whole episode. This is where we're introduced to Cheese Sandwich. I'm not going to talk too much about Cheese Sandwich in this video, mostly because I don't want to include many spoilers. But that's Weird Al.
Call the doctor, beg him, please. Doctor, tell me what I need. Try to put a little cheese in your knee.
Insane segue for this. I put Weird Al on of the conspiracy board, a clip from him from Amish Paradise, because of a very important, kind of out of left field element to Pinkie's character. Her family and like childhood home is like Amish. Okay, my camera battery died right after I said the word Amish, which was very dramatic. I had a feeling that I might need to film this video in 2 chunks, so apologies for if there's any lighting change or like background shifty change, but I don't apologize that I had the opportunity to do another Pinkie Pie inspired fit. Anyway, yeah, this was such an interesting choice to make her family of origin not only Amish, but a rock farm. We see this for the first time in the episode The Cutie Mark Chronicles, which is in season 1, where we get little flashbacks for each of the main 6 that tells us how they got their cutie mark. But I wanted to talk about it here at this episode, where we actually get to meet and talk with her family and see how they interact like in the present day. So Pinkie Pie has a mother and a father, Igneous Rock Pie and Cloudy Quartz, and then she has 3 sisters, Maud Pie, who we see quite a bit, Marble Pie, and Limestone Pie. In the flashback originally, she explains that there was no smiling, no talking, only rocks.
My sisters and I were raised on a rock farm outside of Ponyville. We spent our days working the fields. There was no talking. There was no smiling. There were only rocks.
So that's not the most healthy and nurturing and normal upbringing. You know, I'm not too educated on the Amish, and this is not a critique of the Amish. It is more of a critique of the sad gray rock farm with no smiling allowed. I definitely think that this would have been traumatizing to try and grow up as a very small baby in, you know, no laughing, no talking, no smiling. Again, not saying anything about the Amish. I think we can understand that I'm not dissing the Amish here. But not only would this have been kind of like traumatizing and wouldn't have necessarily nurtured like the emotional processing and understanding that you kind of need at that young age, especially like having no nurturing, loving feelings from your parents because they're not gonna smile or talk to you, I guess. Is that implied? What's going on? But yeah, not only that, but if we're going with the theory that she's autistic, she's not getting any accommodations here. You know, being undiagnosed autistic and growing up just being kind of shoved like a round peg in a square hole through education systems, through social situations, through all kinds of things. I think, you know, I believe there's a saying, or someone said once that like there's no such thing as an untraumatized autistic person, and I don't necessarily believe that. I believe someone actually replied to that, this might have been on TikTok, and was like, hi, I'm not traumatized. I grew up with all the supports I needed, so that's wonderful. This is definitely, I think, a thing that can happen. However, I think it's just so common that kids will grow up unaccommodated and undiagnosed, and that will result in a lot of other mental health issues, you know, like BPD, like attachment issues. I also think it's really interesting, like, why Amish? On my conspiracy board, I put Amish Paradise, the Weird Al song, because Weird Al voices Cheese Sandwich. And it's like a pretty commonly known and agreed upon fact that like Cheese Sandwich is just Weird Al. It's pretty much just his pony-sona. Like that's just Weird Al is in My Little Pony. So, I mean, Weird Al wasn't Amish. So that, but if we're saying that Cheese Sandwich the pony wrote Amish Paradise in his past cause he's Weird Al, he would at least have some sort of knowledge on the situation. I don't know. I feel like they would have had good conversations. I feel like he could have comforted her with his knowledge about butter churning. What do you think the conversations would be between Cheese Sandwich and like igneous rock pie? At the dinner table? Would they talk about Amish Paradise? But anyway, yeah, we also see that joy and laughter and like friendship does really positively impact the rest of the Pie family as well. So it's not like they just are like very serious people by nature and we shouldn't force them to be as exuberant as Pinkie Pie. Like, they all light up and smile and party. In the first flashback we see where Pinkie Pie throws her first party ever, which is unbelievably precious. Oh my god. All of the little baby ponies in that episode, I cannot handle how cute they are as little baby ponies. So yeah, learning about Pinkie Pie's childhood home and upbringing and her family and the environment. Also, the fact that she had to work on the farm from like a very young age. I guess Applejack probably did too, but this feels more like child labor. The Apple family feels more like you're doing chores around the house to help. This is like, what, we're rotating the rocks to the west field? She's 5. She should be coloring. She should be coloring a picture of a cupcake. And I feel like maybe a big reason why Pinkie Pie is so just overflowing and just bouncing with energy and joy and want for fun and want to party is probably because she was so suppressed and just neglected in that area for like her whole childhood. She like no talking, no smiling is crazy. Not only no raucous parties, not only did they not like parties, like Cheese Sandwich's upbringing. Okay, so yeah, confirmed that Cheese Sandwich didn't grow up Amish. I can't just rewrite history because I think it would be funny. Anyway, time to move on to the next episode that I want to do a full analysis of. And this one, can you guess which one it is? Secrets and Pies. The title of this episode is actually a reference to one of Pinkie's lines from her outburst in Party of One. It's all secrets and lies with these ponies. So this is season 7, episode 23, Secrets and Pies. This episode is absolutely chock full of things that support my little headcanons of both BPD and autism. Buckle it. In this episode, we learned that Pinkie Pie apparently is making pies for Rainbow Dash for like every occasion imaginable, like probably multiple times a month. And Rainbow Dash doesn't even like pie, and she doesn't know how to say it, so she just secretly like gives them away or throws them out. Pinkie Pie begins to catch on to this because she realizes, hey, I've never actually seen her eat one of my pies. She feels really betrayed and upset about this, which is fair because it's like your friend's kind of lying to you, and also it feels hurtful when they don't appreciate that you're like baking pies for them. It's like, you know, a quote I marked down from this episode is, she would never throw my pies away like trash in the trash with all the other trash, would she?
That would be ridiculous, because I made it for Rainbow Dash, and she loves my pies. She would never throw them away like trash in the trash with other trash, right? Right?
Like really emphasizing that it's like, oh, she would throw my loving little handmade, little hoof-made sweets that I made for my best friend with love. She would throw them in the trash with the other trash, with the garbage trash. Worthless things I hate, that I disregard. She pulls out the detective cap and the bubble pipe from the Mystery Express episode, and she starts interrogating some ponies around town, not dissimilar to how she grilled Spike in Party of One. I think it's neat that they brought these exact same like props back to show again how serious and how like deep she can get into a paranoid spiral and like kind of enter conspiracy mode. She fully splits on Rainbow Dash, imagining this warped, comically evil version of her where Rainbow Dash is like shooting laser beams from her eyes and cackling with pointy teeth and like destroying the pies out of spite and malice. Like it is, she's so clearly split. She's like, oh no, Rainbow Dash is evil actually. Black and white thinking, mama. Splitting mama. I believe this is in the basement of Sugar Cube Corner because Applejack walks in delivering a like order of apples. There's another cute little moment here between Applejack and Pinkie Pie that kind of shows how much their friendship has grown and how much they've learned to communicate with each other.
You okay? Or are you just screaming for fun?
Screaming is fun, but I'm not okay.
Unfortunately, Pinkie is way too deep in like paranoid undercover detective mode that she decides to go straight ahead with her plan to essentially bake like as many pies as are needed and then ambush Rainbow Dash with them and stare at her while she eats them. Again, I'm gonna call that impulsive behavior and like, what are you doing? Like interpersonal relationship, question mark, indirect communication, exclamation point. Something that makes this episode extra heated is that Rainbow Dash does just continue lying to Pinkie's face and being like, that sure was tasty. I love your pies. It's like, okay, you're really not. You're really fully like bold-faced lying. So again, like if anything's going to trigger and upset a person with BPD, maybe continually lying to them to their face and like kind of gaslighting them. Hey, what's going on here? Did I lose my hat? Oh, that's so upsetting. When did I lose my hat, y'all?
What in the apple?
Actually, this look is kind of cute. Doesn't need the hat. Ugh, the hat improves. What if I pin it into the wig and then I just don't stab myself with a needle? I'm definitely a slightly different mix of guys than I was in the last filming session. Whatever. I mean, this would be really triggering and upsetting for anyone, let alone someone with BPD and or autism. Neither of them handle this situation well at all, and they end up having a really public confrontation and like a crazy outburst that causes a scene. Pinkie Pie has a major like anger episode here. Once again, they are clearly intentionally writing her to appear like mentally unwell here. Her eyes are like bloodshot and she's physically and like clearly girl is struggling. She storms off and refuses to talk to Rainbow Dash. It's unclear for how long they don't talk. It could be later that day, it could be a couple days later, but Dash ends up coming up to her window to apologize with Applejack and Twilight for like backup. Also, okay, the way that Rainbow decided to deal with this is that she concocted like a giant disgusting garbage pie made of trash with the other trash. The trash comes back, but yeah, she's like, to prove my love for you, I'm gonna eat this big nasty pie. And Pinkie Pie's like, hey, I can't watch you do that. You're fine. You must love me if you're willing to eat this big nasty pie. Like, I don't know why this is how we decided to solve the interpersonal conflict, but they make up. One very interesting tidbit from this episode, which is another little thing that ends up being a running theme or a running gag. They refer to chocolate as if it's like some sort of substance that can like make you have a fun time. And this is later shown, is it the very next episode I'm going to talk about? Yes, it is. But yeah, they refer to chocolate as if it's alcohol or something.
That pie couldn't have been the one I made. I must be seeing things. I did have a lot of chocolate this morning.
Girl, what is the chocolate doing? But that is even more blatant in this next episode and the last episode I'm going to be analyzing for this Pinkie Pie video essay. Have you been having fun? How long is this? Where are we? I've been recording for almost 2 hours. Season 8, episode 18, Yaky Sachs. This is one of my favorite Pinkie Pie episodes for showing her, like, BPD traits, honestly. Basically, Pinkie Pie has discovered this instrument, the Yevitophone. I could do a whole other video talking about Yakistan and other very questionable episodes of My Little Pony that did not age well and probably weren't even that great at the time they came out. There's a handful of random episodes of My Little Pony that are just culturally insensitive, but it's not ingrained in the message of the show. Ethically consuming my media by making a spreadsheet where I point out all of the racism. But yeah, this instrument is essentially meant to be like a slightly different fantastical version of a bagpipe, and Pinkie Pie has taken a major liking to it. She enjoys playing it very loudly, very brazenly, very badly. The episode opens with Fluttershy thinking she hears like a hurt animal, and when she comes and finds Pinkie Pie, she's like, oh, that's not a dying animal, that's Pinkie Pie having fun. Pinkie plays this thing everywhere around town. And again, entering other people's homes. Why are you right behind Rarity while she's sewing? She's working. If someone came into this office and started playing the bagpipes behind me, I'd be like, hey, best friend, I love you. Can we reschedule? Like, it's just, I mean, not only is she playing it really, really badly, where it's like hard on the ears, she's also just being really inconsiderate of like what people are doing and if she's interrupting them. It's a little bit hard to watch, but I just love seeing that little pink pony happy. The main six come together and decide that they need to talk to her about this because it's really, really disrupting not only them, but like people in just the general town. Like the citizens of Ponyville are suffering. And I also like this little scene where they all kind of come up and stand side by side and they're like, we need to tell you about something. Listen to her. And then she's like, oh, you should really hear what she has to say, because no one really has the guts to break her heart, or, you know, it's hard to say hard things and it's hard to have hard conversations, and I like that they represent that, in My Little Pony so much. Dash ends up breaking it to her. I find Pinkie Pie has a lot of interpersonal issues with Rainbow Dash specifically, like in Guild of the Brush Off, in Secrets and Pies, and I mean, it's cool here that Rainbow was the one who was able to step up and say like, you're not good. Actually, I think Twilight is the one that ended up properly breaking the news. And the way that Twilight words this, I guess the intention of what they're conveying is like so hurtful and horrible. She's like, Pinkie, you're not very good at the Yevitophone, and we don't want you wasting your time doing something you're not good at.
Pinkie, we all support you, but we're afraid you're just not good at the Yevitophone, and none of us want you to waste your time on something you can't do well.
Oh.
Pinkie appears to take this well at first, being like, oh, that's okay. And she like throws it away and takes off her hat and goes back to work, and she's like, no more Yevitophone playing for me. And they're like, wow, that was easy. She took that so well. Awesome. But yeah, no, then later we see her literally crying in her room, being like, I don't know what to do.
I'm so sad.
Again, the indirect communication. I don't want my friends to be upset by me or have a problem with me. They're all here standing in a line, agreeing together that they have this issue with me. I'm outnumbered. I don't want to lose them. They're clearly already all kind of like, maybe not upset with me, but bothered by me at this time. So I understand why she went, oh no, that's okay. And then slunk away, and then, you know, as she overthinks it, as Pinkie does, it starts to set in that like, okay, this sucks. She literally was calling that thing like her meaning to be, her soulmate, the love of her life. Like, she's in it deep. She's like me right now with ponies. She's hyper fixating. And then the next day in town, as Twilight and Spike, I think, are talking about how well she took it, they see Pinkie walk by, desaturated with straight hair, and like flowers die as she walks by, and the balloons all deflate as she walks by, cause she's so sad. And they're like, oh, okay, maybe not. Maybe she didn't take it that well. The main six all go to apologize to Pinkie Pie, and they find her home empty with Maud there packing up her things. Maud is also really funny here. Maud is awesome. All of the siblings of the Pie family have like different interesting traits, but I love that Maud is just like a complete flat affect with a rock special interest. Again, they just have like different genres of autism. But yeah, they eventually get out of Maud that Pinkie Pie has moved to Yaky. So that's pretty impulsive. She just up and left. I feel like she was so afraid of her friends all being upset at her together that it was easier to just leave than be left. She does say in the show that she moved there to see the Masters play, and she thought it would like spark her interest again, and also, you know, she would be in an area where she can play it and not bother people. It was easier to just remove herself rather than talk to them. She didn't even say goodbye! So the next scene opens up with her at the back of a like Yaky club. She's slumped over, the most desaturated we've ever seen. I also noticed when I was going back looking for these clips that straightened hair sad Pinkie Pie isn't always the same shade of pink. Sometimes she's full saturation, like in the What My Cutie Mark Is Telling Me song/scene. Cause like that time it was magic and she was like given Applejack's thing. Whereas these other times, her actual heart and soul is being crushed. But I screenshotted them all and I compared them, and this is the saddest she's ever been. She moved away, and this is the scene where, I mean, I guess light trigger warning for like vague mention of substance abuse, but she's literally like slinging back ice cream like it's alcohol, and she's like, get me another, and he's like, you've had too much already, and she's like, I said get me another. This is almost like identical to the scene in the SpongeBob SquarePants movie where Patrick and SpongeBob sit at a bar and eat ice cream, and again there's like a bartender, and it's like meant to be an allegory for like drinking at the bar. I was really shocked when I saw this. I was like, okay, so chocolate has like alcoholic properties, at least for Miss Pie. Or she's just, you know, using food as a substance, which, you know, is also a type of addiction, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to get too serious and dark in this video, but like, why did they do that? I'm kind of glad they did because it's so interesting for this theory, but like, does Pinkie Pie have substance abuse issues? She's eaten so much chocolate she can't trust her memory. The bartender's trying to cut her off and she's screaming at him. Okay, when I say it like that, that's crazy. But yeah, the other girls walk in on her and she literally just goes, oh, hey, it's you. Like, bitch, she has split on them entirely. Those are not only strangers, but her enemies right now. They end up apologizing really well, thank God. This is one of the best apologies, at least to Pinkie Pie, that I've come across in my like research for this video. Not like research. I have been researching, okay? I'm a professional pony essayist. Pinkie Pie's like, you guys told me to stop playing this because I'm super bad. And Twilight straight up says, yeah, and we were wrong. I think that's great. I think more often we need to get a super clear-cut I was wrong, especially for kids. Not that kids are dumb, but like even just for the character's sake, like a really clear-cut I am sorry I was wrong can go a long way, especially with autistic folks. You know, don't beat around the bush. Don't use fancy language. Like, just say I was wrong. That wasn't kind of me.
But you were the ones who told me to stop because I wasn't good.
And we were wrong.
Playing makes you happy.
And as long as it makes you happy,
It doesn't matter how good you are.
so get up there and show these yaks how it's done.
And the episode closes with Pinkie Pie bursting back to her sweet curly-haired pink Pinkie Pie self and playing the Uvitophone with all of the passion in the world. And I really love this episode for analyzing. I think there's all sorts of little like tidbits in it. It's also the only episode where her pinkness desaturates throughout the episode. So that's interesting. Her actual, like, the pinkness of the pie decreases when you're mean to her. The only other thing I failed to mention in this video is Pinkie having her pinky sense. This is established in season 1, but honestly, I'd be kind of reaching if I tried to tie this to my theory. Like, it is cool that she's the only one that has it, and it's called Pinkie sense. So like an abnormal sensory experience in my neurodivergent life? Who could imagine? But it's really more of like a spidey sense, and also Cheese Sandwich has the same thing. So also either they're both autistic or it's just like a spidey sense type thing, because it really is just like, you know, she'll get a knobbly knee and then something will fall from the sky, or she'll get like a twitchy nose and then like bad weather will strike. So it's more of a paranormal thing, but I also just think that, again, Pinkie Pie is always kind of the only one who is able to reach outside of the show's normal, like, universe rules. She's often the only one that has different types of animation or breaking the fourth wall. She's the only one that has such a, like, stark, different version of herself that has a completely different personality and also appearance. I just love her. I think she's wonderful, and I think it's really great to have allegories or like representation, even through headcanons, that are, you know, maybe not the typical stereotype you would think of when you think BPD. Maybe I'm outdated on what that would be, but I just love that she is first and foremost a kind and considerate, giving friend who just feels very deeply and means very well, and sometimes has inappropriate reactions when she feels threatened, and her friends are willing to work with her on that, and that's magical. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the final time I'm hitting record. I have put a ton of research and script writing and spreadsheeting and doing this for some reason and putting together this look, and I'm about to go edit and not stop because I'm trying to get this video out this week. I was faced between either I whip something up quick and fun, like a thrift haul, and I just spit that out and I do this next week, or I just absolutely marathon and like don't do anything else other than this for the next 5 days. And it's day number like 3, so please give this a like and a share. Honestly, this is the kind of thing that I would really love if it could maybe reach other people that are interested in My Little Pony. My videos very, very, very rarely go outside of my like people that are subscribed to me. You often hear people say like, bro, 70% of my viewers aren't subscribed, please subscribe. Bro, like 90% of my viewers are subscribed, and I love you all, but it would be so sick if this could hit the algo. That probably won't happen, but it would be nice to dream. We also have a Patreon if you want to support us and hang out. We also do YouTube memberships. There are all kinds of live streams and digital art and shenanigans and etc. for both of those. Here is what they are. And thank you so much for watching. I mean, I can't really say let me know if you want more videos like this, because I deadass I could not have done this if I wasn't already thinking about it 24/7 and unable to think of anything else. And like I said, the Google Doc started just because I had to get this out of my head. I had to start keeping track. I was like, this is a pattern now. It's happening. But I don't know. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed something a little bit different. And we will see you in the next video, which is not this one, because this one's over. Bye!